Welcome back to the deep dive. We are tearing through the latest research today, and we are plunging into one of the biggest, most complex industrial shifts happening right now.
The massive systemic pivot of the automotive industry toward electric propulsion, EVs.
Exactly, and you might think this is just about technology.
But it's so much more. Our sources frame this deep dive as a critical systemic ecosystem transformation. To really get it, you have to look at all the stakeholders.
Right, everyone from governments and car manufacturers to, well, to you, the consumer.
And the electric grid, the charging providers, everyone.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to give you a comprehensive shortcut to understanding all these interconnected forces at play.
And it's crucial right now because the research shows this whole transition is in a critical phase.
You mean what exactly?
Meaning it's struggling to move beyond the early adopters. It hasn't quite broken through to the mass market yet.
And this is all happening under huge pressure.
Immense pressure. This isn't really optional. It's fueled by what the sources call landscape-level pressures.
Things like climate policy.
Primarily climate policies, like that 2035 ban on new internal combustion engines in the EU, but also energy security. And the urgency is real. Transport is the only EU sector where greenhouse gas emissions actually went up between 1990 and 2019.
Wow.
By 33.5%. So you can see where the political heat is coming from.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If the pressure is that intense, what are the biggest walls the EV movement is hitting at what the research calls the regime level, the current system?
The research consistently points to 5 major barriers. First, and this is the big one, high vehicle costs.
Still number one.
Still number one. Second, a kind of deep cultural resistance from consumers. Third, some lingering hostility from traditional car manufacturers about restructuring.
Sure, changing a century-old business is hard.
Very. Fourth is insufficient charging infrastructure. And finally, and this one is often overlooked, the challenge of integrating all these new EVs into the existing electric grid.
Let's drill down on those economics, because that seems to be where the rational argument hits an emotional wall. The initial price is high, we know that.
And the battery is a huge part of that, around 40% of the vehicle's price.
Right. But the total cost of ownership, or TCO, is actually lower for EVs. You save on fuel, on maintenance. Some EVs can reach cost parity in just 5 years, so why isn't that TCO message landing?
Because the mass market thinks in terms of today's budget, not savings 5 years from now. Industry experts are clear on this. The average buyer is impacted by the initial price, not the TCO.
It's the sticker shock.
It's pure sticker shock. It's like paying for 5 years of gas up front, even if you save money in year 6.
Yeah.
And that price gap is just brutal in the lower end, more affordable models.
So if the free market isn't making this shift happen naturally, what's the policy solution?
Well, this is where the sources say you need institutional steering.
Meaning government intervention.
Yes. Subsidies, tax breaks, incentives. Something to bridge that initial price gap and make the purchase make sense now, not in 5 years.
That covers the consumer side. But what about the grid? That fifth barrier, that's something most people don't think about at all. Why is the grid so stressed by EVs?
It's a huge structural challenge. The grid simply wasn't designed for millions of new mobile high-draw appliances plugging in.
Oh, it's a capacity issue.
It's more of a localized capacity issue. Think about it.
Huh.
Everyone gets home from work between, say, 5:30 and 7:30 p.m. That's already peak load time.
Right.
Now imagine hundreds of people on a single neighborhood transformer all plug in their cars to charge at the same time. That localized infrastructure gets put under enormous strain.
So it's not the national grid collapsing, it's my neighborhood's transformer blowing up.
Precisely. You're looking at localized brownouts or needing incredibly expensive infrastructure upgrades in every single suburb. The solution has to be smart charging.
Delaying charging until off-peak hours.
Exactly. Flattening that demand.
Okay, let's shift from the macro challenges to the factory floor, the supply chain. Going from internal combustion engines to EVs must be causing just massive disruption.
It's fascinating because the EV powertrain is actually much simpler mechanically, fewer moving parts.
So it should be easier for the car makers, the OEMs.
In theory. But what it's done is create this massive dependency on a very concentrated supply chain for the single most expensive component.
The battery.
The battery. And the power is consolidating among a handful of huge global suppliers. CITL, for instance, holds something like 36% of the global market.
Wow. So the power has shifted from, say, Ford or Volkswagen to the company making the battery.
Completely. The OEMs now have to negotiate with these incredibly powerful players for price, for volume, for everything. It's a whole new power dynamic.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. Let's move from the factory to the driver's mind, the psychology. What are the emotional barriers holding people back?
Well, the classic one is still range anxiety, but it's not just an isolated fear.
It's connected to other things.
It's tied directly to two other issues: not enough public fast chargers, and just as importantly, widespread misinformation. A lot of people are still operating on old data or, fake news about batteries. It erodes trust.
And then there's the sheer disruption to our habits. Refueling a car takes 5 minutes. Why is the longer charging time such a massive psychological barrier, even with DC fast charging?
Because we're fighting 100 years of established habits. We are used to an active interruption. You see the gauge is low, you stop, you refuel, you leave. It's a task.
A dedicated chore.
Dedicated chore. And experts argue the solution isn't just faster tech, it's a fundamental shift in mindset.
A shift in mindset. How so?
Charging needs to be reframed. It shouldn't be a scheduled task you go to. It should be a seamless background activity that happens when the car is already parked.
Like plugging in your phone when you get home.
Exactly, like plugging in your phone. It happens at home overnight or at the office during the day or while you're shopping. The new rule is, if you are actively waiting for your car to charge, you are doing it wrong.
That reframing is so important. But in the meantime, governments are trying to solve the physical side of this, right? The chicken and egg problem.
Yes, with regulations like the EU's AFIR and funding for new charging networks. But the short-term data is, well, it's problematic.
How so?
The utilization rates for many public charging stations are incredibly low. The sources we looked at cite figures around 2% usage.
Wait, hold on. 2%. If that's accurate, how can any charging point operator, a CPO, possibly make money?
They can't, not in the short term. It completely undermines their business model right now. They're investing for a future that hasn't arrived yet. And this creates a vicious cycle.
A vicious cycle. Okay, explain that.
Because utilization is so low, the CPOs have to raise their tariffs, their prices, to try and recover their huge investment. But the high tariffs then discourage people from buying EVs, which keeps utilization low. The system is trapped.
So they have to find a way to break that loop.
And collaboration is the main strategy. You see car manufacturers and CPOs forming joint ventures like Ionity to build out networks together.
And they're also using other business models, right?
Yes, and this is smart. Things like car sharing services or electrifying corporate fleets. It gets people into the cars, lets them try the technology, and breaks down those psychological barriers without that huge upfront purchase. It's an exposure strategy.
So we've talked costs, supply chains, charging. But what does this all mean for the person listening to us? This friction, this anxiety, this resistance to changing habits. It feels bigger than just car technology.
It is much bigger, and this is where we have to look beyond engineering. The research pulls from philosophy, from phenomenology to explain this feeling.
Okay.
It argues that the disorientation and disempowerment people are feeling is produced by the dynamization and defamiliarization of the life world.
That's a very academic phrase. Can you give us a simple analogy? What does that actually feel like for someone at a charging station?
It means your mental map of how the world works has suddenly become unreliable. Think about a gas station. You pull up, and you operate on what are called assumptions of constancy.
Meaning you assume everything will just work the way it always has.
Exactly. The pump works, your card works, you know how long it takes, the system is stable. Now, an EV charger, all that constancy collapses. Is this the right plug? Do I need an app? Is the station even working? The rules are constantly changing.
So that belief that my past experience is a reliable guide, it's gone.
It's gone. And when that happens, you get what the research calls the obsolescence of the stocks of knowledge.
My internal user manual is outdated.
It's completely outdated. How to buy a car, how to own it, how to refuel it, that common sense map is now useless. And that's what sources call the precarization of everyday knowledge.
And that would cause huge disorientation. If the car dealer can't even explain the charging incentives properly, or I'm reading conflicting things online, I feel powerless. I feel confused.
Exactly. And that feeling of confusion when you're about to make a $50,000 decision is a massive source of resistance. The knowledge gap is a barrier in itself.
And what's the ultimate consequence when our knowledge becomes obsolete and the world feels so unpredictable?
It leads to a loss of the capacity to make long-term plans. It's just incredibly difficult for a consumer to commit to a major long-term purchase if the rules and the technology keep changing under their feet.
And this is made worse by inconsistent government policy.
Explicitly worsened. The sources have a fantastic, vivid term for this. They call it policy ballerine.
Policy ballerina, that is brilliant. It makes you dizzy just thinking about it.
It's perfect, right? It captures that feeling of frequent, unpredictable shifts. A tax credit is here one year, gone the next. The rules keep doing pirouettes, and if the institutional landscape is spinning, consumers are not going to step onto the dance floor.
That really brings us full circle. We've gone from these huge landscape-level pressures like emissions all the way down to the deep-seated psychological resistance that comes from a world that just won't stand still.
And the key takeaway for you, the listener, is this. The road to mass adoption needs more than just better batteries and faster chargers. It absolutely requires sustained institutional stability, predictable, long-term incentives, and really effective education to replace that obsolete knowledge.
Let's close with a final provocative thought. We've seen some industry leaders like Tesla and some of the Chinese manufacturers moving aggressively toward vertical integration.
Right, they're internalizing everything, making their own batteries, their own software.
So, in a world defined by this collapse of constancy, by this policy ballerine environment, is this trend just a desperate strategy by these companies to create their own little pockets of stability?
Their own isolated ecosystems of control within an otherwise unpredictable market.
They can't control the government, but they can control their supply chain. It's a way to insulate themselves from all the chaos, something for you to chew on.
It is. It's a search for certainty in a profoundly uncertain time.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this analysis gives you a much clearer, more comprehensive view of all the moving parts in the EV transition. If you want more insights like this, please remember to follow our channel. We appreciate your attention and your curiosity.